Oh, guilty. Hello everybody, welcome to another video. You can probably tell by my very red face that we are in the midst of a heat wave, which means one thing: we are in summer, which means we're halfway through the year. So I thought this was a good opportunity for me to go through all the books that I've read up till this point, half a year in. So at the beginning of the year, I set myself a goal of reading 35 books. So I want to see how close I am to reaching that target. I know it's been a good reading year so far, so I think I'm well on my way to reaching that goal. But I thought I'd go through some of the books I've read because it has been a good reading year and I've read some really interesting books. But because this is a hybrid YouTube channel where I do a little bit of my lifting, a little bit of my reading, I need to go and do a gym session. So I'll show you that. And I'm going to be doing some squats for the first time in a very long time because I hurt my back not that long ago. So yeah, I've just been really slowly reintroducing those sort of compound movements like squats and deadlifts. So I'll give them a go today, do a bit of a leg day, and then we'll go home and talk about some books. Right then, back from the gym. Very good session, but oh my god, was it sweaty. It's like close to 30 degrees at the moment, but I think the weather app says it's feeling like 35, so I was very saturated. But nice to get some squats under my belt. Talking of belts though, I actually have lent my belt to Sam, so I ended up doing the squats beltless, so testing the core a little bit. Just worked up to 180 kilos and that felt pretty good. Went to the driving range with Lois as well, so it's nice to get a little bit of golf in as well, and I actually managed to get a yard PB, so I managed to get 300 yards for the first time ever. So it's been a good day of activities, but now I'm going to talk a little bit about what books I've read this year so far. So I think in total, I think we worked it out, I've read 25 or 26 books. So my target at the beginning of the year was no, did I say 25 or 26? Did I just say 25?
You said 25 or 26.
Yeah, so I've read 25 or 26 books, and my target for the year was 35. So I'm already well ahead of schedule. So without further ado, let's get into these. I'm not going to sort of talk too much about the synopsis of each book. I'm just going to tell you what I rated it, because I've got a little rating scale on my Instagram. And then just briefly talk about what I thought of the book. So let's get into it. Oh my god, I'm already sweating. Okay, let's get into it. The first book is The Dark Half by Stephen King. And what did I rate this out of 10, Lois?
6.75.
6.75. And what did I say about it?
Interesting premise. Couldn't quite get on board with it. Nice to be reintroduced to some characters from needful things.
Okay, so
Reminded me of the book Misery mixed in with The Outsider.
okay, so if anyone that's read Misery and The Outsider, I obviously felt like there was themes similar to those books. Yeah, so this is set in Castle Rock, so if anyone's ever read Needful Things, then there's some characters within that book which feature in this one. And the kind of premise of this book is basically there's a writer who has a pseudonym, he writes under a pseudonym, and he kills off the writer, but the writer then comes back to life and then shit goes down. So it's quite interesting because obviously Stephen King has his pseudonym as Richard Bachman, so I think he probably drew off a little bit of inspiration from that, but didn't massively enjoy it that much. It wasn't my favourite Stephen King book, but that is the first book that I read of 2026. Number 2, Fairy Tale, again by Stephen King. And again, couldn't massively get on board with this one. Just felt very sort of repetitive. And what did I rate this one out of 10? 6.25. So there we go. Didn't massively enjoy this one quite as much. Just felt like once I sort of understood the concept of him going to another sort of realm, it just got, repetitive, and didn't massively enjoy this one that much. Next up, probably the biggest disappointment of the year, and that is The Alchemist by Paul Coelho. This is obviously featured in a lot of people's top 10 books of all time. I was expecting really big things, a fairly short story, but I can't remember exactly what I said about it. What did I say about it?
I know some people absolutely love this book, and I can understand why, but I just didn't really connect to it like I hoped I would.
Yeah.
So there was already expectations.
I was already really hoping to like this one, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't really get on board with it. There's obviously some messaging behind it, but I just, didn't really enjoy it that much. And what did I rate it out of 10? I gave it a 3.5 out of 10, so one of the biggest disappointments of the year. So going from one of my least favourite books to one of my favourite books of the year, and it's an absolute chonker, it is King Sorrow by Joe Hill. And for those that don't know, Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, and you can definitely see the inspiration that he gets from his dad, because this is very similar to It in as much as it's a coming-of-age story. It follows a group of, I think, teenagers into adulthood. So when they are teenagers, they get together and accidentally summon a dragon while they're all sort of drunk and getting high. They basically do a ritual which happens to summon a dragon, and that dragon is called King Sorrow. And every year King Sorrow comes back and has to feast on somebody, so it's almost like this ritual has promised a meal for King Sorrow, and it kind of follows the journey into adulthood where they're trying to work out how to basically kill King Sorrow. And it follows a lot of like plot lines, obviously, because it's a very big book. There's a lot of characters in it, but I absolutely love this one, and I think I scored it 8.5 out of 10. So next book is another unbelievable book, and an unbelievable trilogy, which I didn't actually realise is part of a bigger series, but that is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This is the First Law series. I thought it was just 3 books, but apparently it does extend. Absolutely amazing book, kind of a historic fantasy, so it reminds me a lot of like something like Game of Thrones, not that I've read that. But yeah, it just follows multiple characters which are all very problematic, follows sort of wars, just a lot of political intrigue, a lot of like deceitfulness and backstabbing and power struggles. So yeah, just really good book, really good series, and I think I gave this one 8.75 out of 10. Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. This is a selection of short stories. There's a couple of good ones in here. I think The Mist is in this one. That was probably my favourite, but overall not my favourite collection of Stephen King books or short stories, and I think I gave this one 6.75 out of 10. So next up was actually a Kindle book by an independent author that I follow, called Dave Musson, and it is his collection of short stories called Found, and I thought this was really good. It's very short, but very joyful. I sort of read this while I was on a car journey somewhere, and I gave this 8.25 out of 10, and I think a lot of that is because I like to promote independent authors as well. So on my Goodreads, I think I gave this 5 out of 5 just to really sort of promote that, because he is a good author, but also, you know, independent authors, I think it's good to sort of encourage people that are just starting out. So really enjoyed the short stories, and I do recommend checking it out. God, I'm realising how many bangers I've read this year. So next up is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. This is a psychological thriller like no other. It's a very short book. It has been adapted into a Netflix film, obviously, because it's printed on the book, and I absolutely hate it when they put that sticker on there. It's not even a sticker, it just doesn't come off. But either way, really good book. It's kind of about I'm not going to spoil it, just read it. It's really good. Psychological thriller. If you've read anything, if you've read The Silent Patient, it's kind of along those lines in terms of like quite twisty. So yeah, go and check this one out. And I gave that one 9 out of 10. Metronome by Tom Watson. Really sort of interesting book in as much as it's kind of a little bit dystopian, but also just it's got a really eerie theme behind it. It's very sort of isolating. So it's basically set on an island with two characters, and they're not allowed to have children for whatever reason, and they're kind of trying to find their child throughout the whole story, and that's kind of the premise of the whole story. I did enjoy it. I gave it 7 out of 10, but it's not something that sort of really stood out to me in terms of like the best books that I've read so far this year. The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. I did enjoy this one. It was a quite long and fairly repetitive, and I'll be totally honest with you, I can't remember the full story of it. It basically is very similar to The Dark Tower in as much as the main character, who I believe is called Jack Sawyer, he travels into something called the Territories, which is essentially Midworld for those that have read the Dark Tower series, and he's kind of traveling with his companion. What is it called? Wolf? Is it Wolf? Is it just called Wolf? It is a wolf, but is his name Wolf? I can't honestly remember the story behind it, but it's a bit of like an adventure story, really. And I'm keen to read the next one in the trilogy, because it is going to be a trilogy now, because it's going to be the next Stephen King book. So I'm keen to read Black House, and then obviously the third book is Other Worlds Than These, which is coming out in October. Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, definitely the darkest book that I've ever read. Really interesting prose by Cormac McCarthy, just a very interesting writing style. Very unique. For anyone that's ever read Cormac McCarthy, you'll know exactly what I mean. But just relentless violence, very bleak. There's not really much positivity within this book, so if you want something that's light-hearted, this isn't for you. But this is my first outing of Cormac McCarthy. I'm also reading The Road at the moment. I actually am preferring The Road at the moment, but in terms of just shock value, this is worth a read. And I do actually think I rated it quite highly. So I gave this one 8 out of 10. I did enjoy it, but it is brutal. Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. This is the second book in the First Law series. Again, I thought it was a trilogy, but I do think it extends beyond that. There's a few standalone books, and I believe there is another series which isn't known as the First Law series, but I'm keen to read all of it, because the whole sort of universe that Joe Abercrombie creates here is really good, and I definitely recommend this one. And I gave this one 8.75 out of 10. I'm very generous with my scores, I think. Oh, maybe not. This is The Colorado Kid by Stephen King. I gave this 5 out of 10. Another short story by him. Just couldn't really get on board with it. It's a bit of a detective series. It's kind of like a murder mystery, but just the resolution at the end, you don't really get a satisfying ending for me. So 5 out of 10. Children of Time by Adrian Tarkovsky. I really enjoyed this one. This is a sci-fi book. It's based in deep space, where the human race has basically had to go and find a new home because Earth has basically been destroyed, and some scientists have sent, I think it's like a seed or something, to another planet to try and restart evolution and fast track evolution to restart the human race, essentially. But something goes wrong, and it isn't the human race which starts to evolve, but another species, and that's kind of where I'll leave it. But really interesting book, and it is actually part of a series. I believe it's more than 2 books now, but I have got the other 2 books, or 2 of the books, as part of the Children of series. Really interested in reading them at some point, but I've got a lot of books to get through for the rest of the year, so I probably won't get to them this year, but definitely interested in reading them at some point. Bag of Bones by Stephen King. In retrospect, this one I enjoyed a lot more than I initially thought when I first finished it. I gave it 7 out of 10, but it does remind me for some reason a bit of Pet Sematary, even though it's not as scary as Pet Sematary. I can't really remember exactly the story behind it, but I do remember sort of when I had time to digest it, enjoying it a lot more than I maybe gave it what I scored it. So I gave it 7 out of 10, but it's actually quite an underrated Stephen King book. What's not an underrated Stephen King book, though, is Dreamcatcher. Just couldn't really get on board with this one. I think I scored this 6 out of 10. So I didn't really get on board with this one. I think I've talked about it in previous videos. I'm not really going to waste much time talking about it. It just ran out of steam for me. Had the potential to be an amazing book. The first 200 pages, unbelievable. But the last sort of, how many pages is it? The last 450 pages, just not for me. Another one that wasn't really for me is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. This has been hyped up quite a lot, I think, this year and last year, just on Bookstagram and Booktube and things like that. Just couldn't really get on board with it. It's essentially about a group of friends who are game designers, and they kind of grow up together, and they've just got a very problematic relationships with each other. And I just didn't really like the characters that much. I felt they were just very narcissistic, and I just couldn't really get on board with the whole premise behind it. So it was okay, but not my favourite book of the year. Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Preferred the film. The book is very good, but I feel like the film goes into more detail. And if you have never read anything by Chuck Palahniuk, or you haven't seen the film, then I think you'd probably get a little bit frustrated with this book, the way it sort of jumps between timelines quite a lot. But yeah, when you understand kind of the concept of the book, having seen the film, I think you can kind of accept that a little bit more with the book. I have no idea if that makes sense, but I gave this 7.75 out of 10. Ooh, one that I did really enjoy, another short story, I just really love this cover as well, is Transcription by Ben Lerner. I've actually talked about this in a little bit of detail in previous videos, so I will refer to those videos. I've got some shorts on what I thought of this video, so go and check those out. Next up is Hamnet. Very, very good book. The first time reading anything by Maggie O'Farrell. We've got a few Maggie O'Farrell books, so I'll probably read a few more at some point in the future. One of only 4 books ever to make me cry. Weirdly, the other ones were actually Stephen King books, but this is the first book, aside from a Stephen King book, which has made me cry. Just very sad, very tragic. Explores relationships between fathers and sons, husband and wives, and yeah, kind of obviously is kind of the inspiration behind Hamlet, the Shakespearean play, so there's obviously reference kind of to that within the book. I don't know if this is actually a fictional book or whether this is actually based off true events. I obviously know that William Shakespeare's son did die in real life, and kind of did inspire his play, but whether the actual events that happen within this story are true, I don't know. But either way, really good book, but yeah, very sad. Shift by Hugh Howey. This is the second book in the Silo series. Very, very good. Again, I've talked about this in a previous video. It is a prequel to the first book. So I'm looking forward to reading Dust, which is the third book in the series, which is kind of going to wrap everything up. So I'm going to be reading that at some point this year. Very good book. And I think I rated this 7.75 out of 10. Pretty good. And my second 9 out of 10 book for the year is The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. This is the final book in the 3-book trilogy of the first little series. Wraps everything up, kind of, but there is some loose ends as well. So obviously there is going to be sort of more books, or there are more books that can sort of expand this universe a little bit. Yeah, just so good. I kind of explained a little bit earlier what it is. I just recommend it. First time reading anything by Joe Abercrombie. He's very funny, and just, yeah, character development wise, he's absolutely brilliant. And some of my favourite characters in fiction, I think, is actually done by Joe Abercrombie, I think now. Glockter being one, and Logan Ninefingers, 2 amazing characters. Definitely recommend this series. And then the last 2 books are books that I finished literally within the last couple of days. And the first one is The 3-Body Problem by Zixing Liu. Really, really good book. Very sort of confusing at first. Explores a little bit of Chinese political history. So I've learned a little bit about that. But it's very sort of sci-fi based. But also there's a big section which looks at role-play games, but that's kind of linked into the sci-fi aspect. Yeah, so this is the first book in a trilogy and is kind of setting up the next 2 books. And I've actually heard the next 2 books within the trilogy are even better than this. So I have got The Dark Forest, but I haven't got the 3rd book. So I'm going to be reading that next. I'm looking forward to how the series concludes. And I gave this one 8 out of 10, but I can imagine by the end of the series I'm going to be rating it a bit higher. And the last book that I have read this year so far is Departures by Julian Barnes, which is an extremely interesting book. So I actually bought this the day before my wedding, thinking it was going to be a bit of a love story and something that would kind of get me in the feels a little bit, because it says it is a story of a man called Stephen and a woman called Jean who fall in love. So instantly I'm thinking love story, but what it is actually is a hybrid book between fiction and non-fiction, which is basically Julian Barnes talking about his relationship with death. because he is someone who's been diagnosed with cancer. He's in his 80s now, and he's kind of facing the fact that he's not going to be living much longer. So he's kind of just talking about his relationship with death and being very sort of stoic but also philosophical about it. And I just find it really, really fascinating how he sort of explores that within this book. It's a bit sad and depressing at times, but I think it has got a deeper meaning than just the abstract view of what death is. There is something to be really sort of said about the stoicism of confronting death, and I think that this book explores that quite well. So I did actually enjoy it a lot more than I thought I was going to, having understood exactly what the book was actually about.